Hey, I want to welcome Kennesaw Happenings podcasters, and I want to welcome our viewers. Thanks for being here. And in the studio, we have a very decisive, young, growing business. We met at the KBA at an after hours. We actually saw each other before this at a wake up KBA. So, Taylor, tell us who you are, who you serve, who you are, what you do, and who you serve.
Yeah, Pete, thank you so much for having me on. I love getting to do podcasts and just talk about what we do. I'm Taylor Chastain. I'm the owner of Up and Away Junk Hauling. We're a full-service junk removal company. We're based here in Kennesaw. We service all of the metro Atlanta. We've been hauling junk for 10 years now this year. And so for us, it's all about helping people. Mm-hmm. We view what we do as a huge service to our clients, whether that be a residential client cleaning out the home, whether it be a family member cleaning out a property for their loved one if they've passed away or moved into some other kind of facility, or whether we're getting into commercial work, just helping our clients maximize their investment in their property. No matter what we're doing, we're helping. And so that's the way we look at it.
Let me ask you just a quick question, because I always like to hear, how did you get into the business that you're in?
Yep. So junk removal for me was totally an accident. Mm-hmm. I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. My dad is an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. My dad's never had a W-2 in his life. And so,
wow.
Yeah. And so
that's impressive.
Yeah. So I started off the way he started off, which was landscaping, cutting grass. So in high school, I'd drive the truck around and knock on doors. Hey, can I cut your grass? Turns out landscaping is terrible. It's no fun. I hated it. Mm-hmm. Also, turns out I'm allergic to grass. So I'd break out in hives and bumps and the whole deal. Golly.
Yeah, that's not a good match. There.
And I mean, I kept doing it because it was a good way to make money.
Right.
But when one of my landscape clients, they had their toilets redone and asked me to take the toilets to the dump for them, I said, well, I've never been to the dump, but I can drive a truck. So I took them back into the dump, threw the toilets on the ground, and they shattered. And I went, that was fun.
It's like that break, how you break things as a kid. You enjoy. Oh, yeah. I mean, I remember at the state fair, you took a jackhammer and you take to a car and you pay like $1 or $2, whatever it was. And you could slam the car. It's just, there's something about destroying something.
Absolutely. So I was like, this is fun. And my very next thought was, I bet I could get paid for this. And so I started from there. I had a $3,500 pickup truck, and I borrowed a trailer from the toilet family. Mm-hmm. Their deal was when they filled it, I emptied it. Otherwise, I could use it whenever I wanted. Right. And so I had a little red truck and a little yellow borrowed trailer. It looked like ketchup and mustard going down Dallas Highway. And that was 2014. And I've been hauling junk since then.
Dang.
Yep.
Well, it seems like, just my observation, maybe you can confirm it, we're a society of buying things, consumer. So I know from here at Overture, people move from a house to an apartment, which means a house doesn't fit into an apartment. No. And if I've seen one, I've seen 50 people coming with too much junk, and I'm not junk, I would say too much possessions.
Yeah.
And now they're saying, what do I do with that couch that doesn't fit?
Right.
So what with that in mind, are you seeing the same thing out there where we have a lot of junk to get rid of?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, there's two kind of buckets it falls into. One would be anybody who lived through the Depression or were, children of those who lived through the Depression, especially the oldest children. So I'm talking people 80s and up. They couldn't let anything go, not even because they wanted it, but because one day they might need it. Mm-hmm. So a great example is I cleaned out a shed for a gentleman who was, I think he was 87, and he had a whole container of the little nozzles that go on spray paint cans.
No way.
Every nozzle off of every spray paint can, just in case he needed a different nozzle.
Yeah.
I was like, I've never heard of a shortage on spray paint nozzles, right?
Yeah, that's right.
We were throwing away 5-gallon buckets of used nails that he would pull out and straighten. I was like, nails are like dirt cheap.
Yes.
But that's just the mentality. So that's the one category. And then category 2 is the people that, generally these are the ones that I see that are, 35 to 55. They've got disposable income. They always want the newest, biggest, best, greatest, whatever. And either they make their first downsize, or they're doing their first remodel, or they're doing something like that that causes them to reassess their space. And that's when they'll get rid of a lot of stuff, or that, their kids will go to college. Okay, well, now we don't need a lacrosse net in the backyard. We certainly don't need 4 of them. And so we just go through that process of cleaning out. So those are generally the 2 big buckets I see, but tons of people have way more than what they need. And so for us, we consider our job to properly steward those items.
Yes.
And obviously, if they're moldy and got cat urine on them, then okay, you've got to junk them. There's nothing else you can do with them. But if we can donate or recycle or do something else with it, then that's our preference, is to get it somewhere outside of the landfill.
What would you say, because we are launching over at the Manor at Barrett one podcast that's just for locals. This addresses our senior living. So just for the sake of business owners, take us back to 2014. That first year, you're trying to figure out everything. What was your biggest challenge that first year in getting your business launched?
So I always say, like, I had 2 launches. So in 2014, it was pretty low stakes because it was just me and whatever money I could scratch up is what I had. I was working like 4 other jobs at that point. So the biggest thing at that time was just the very basics of finding jobs, finding people who wanted work done. I was doing a lot of Facebook and Nextdoor, just posting, trying to get some traction, telling everybody at church about it, all that good stuff. But then in 2020, so I rebranded to Up and Away in 2019. Okay. Still kind of part-time, was working for a church. In 2020 is when I went full-time. And that's when I started having the challenge of, how do I hire? How do I hold guys accountable to what they're supposed to be doing when I give them the keys to the truck and say, see you in 10 hours? That opened the whole new can of worms of, okay, how do I actually manage and lead a team beyond just finding jobs and getting them done?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So I liked what you said about your dad never having a W-2, was always 1099. What did you pick up? What was the most important thing you picked up as a son of a person that's obviously entrepreneurial mindset? What did you pick up from him over those years that you just jumped in? I love the fact you jumped in and just started making money and figured it out. So take our viewers there.
Yeah. So for me, a big inspiration from my dad was the ability to, any idea you have, you can take it and run with it. And he was always very encouraging of that. Any idea we ever had, even as little kids, he encouraged us to run with it. So I remember being 7 or 8 years old, and I had done a bunch of coloring pages. I stuck them up in my room and did an art show and was going to sell them for $0.25 a piece or whatever. Right. And my parents they just entertained me with it. But he encouraged the idea of, if you got something that you think you can sell, you can try. Why not try? Wow.
That is okay. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Keep going.
So, and that just has continued. I mean, over my whole life, and what my dad does now, he's a fractional CFO. So I used to call him a business consultant. He used to call himself that, 5 years, 10 years ago. Now everybody in the business consulting space are the rah, build your team. You're so great. All that good stuff. That's not exactly what he does. He comes in and looks at the books and says, hey, you're hemorrhaging money here. This guy's costing you money. We need to go make some changes. But he's very good at what he does. He's very good at the numbers. And so over the last 2 or 3 years, that's been the big learning area for me, is learning how to dial in and run the business by the numbers, not just by, are we doing jobs today or not? Because that's not really an actual good business.
I love that. I mean, I'm a big proponent of the fractional CFO, CEO, fractional vice president, because you're not big enough to hire a full-time, CFO, right? But you have to think like you are, because if you don't know your numbers, you can't make effective decisions every day. So at what point did you kind of embrace your dad with that numbers part of the business? Was that 2019 when you started to grow your team?
I'd say that was probably when I got really serious about it, was 2021. I went and converted my whole business to a completely integrated CRM. So it's a CRM that runs everything on the jobs, that meets up with QuickBooks, that does all the reporting and the payroll. So at that point, that's when I was able to really marry everything together. And then now it's just a matter of continuing to dial in the numbers to get okay, can we move reconciliations in a 6-week thing to something shorter?
Yeah.
See,
Okay.
I think we're good.
Okay, yeah. I'm sorry.
That's still good.
Okay.
Yeah, we're still going. But yeah, so we can move, reconciliation from something that takes 6 weeks to can we get our books 95% accurate within 7 days of close of month? We can do that. That's great. And then now I've got guys on my team who are more number nerdy than I am because I'm just not a detail oriented person naturally. So I've got some guys that are, and so they are helping me with reporting. They're tracking how many yard signs went out today, what was our sales today, what was our labor per hour today, and they track all of that stuff so that we can start feeding it back to the team and saying, hey, here's the standard, here's where you're measuring up to that standard. That way everybody knows exactly what they can do to hit their KPIs.
Awesome, man. I tell you what, I literally, when I met you at the Governor's Gun Club, it's like never judge a book by its cover, because you don't know the philosophy of a business person until we talk through some of this. Tell our viewers, like, you sponsored an event at the Governor's Gun Club, so that kind of highlighted your business. What point did you embrace the local association and bring that kind of part of your marketing into play? Yeah,
so I would say very early. I've been involved with some kind of either open or closed networking I've been involved with for at least 4 to 5 years now. What's funny is the way most junk removal startups go is they buy a big truck, they get it lettered, and they go spend a bunch of money on Google Ads.
Yes.
And they just go run the jobs and run the jobs and run the jobs, and they don't even consider making money until year 2. And I was like, well, I can't do that because I was working at a church, which I wasn't making hardly any money doing that. So I was like, okay, if I got to survive, I have to make a profit at the end of each day. And then at this point, back in 2020, the summer of 2020, my wife she was a hairdresser, so her work tanked.
Right.
And then by the summer of 2021, she was pregnant, so she became stay-at-home mama. She moved our whole house almost by herself. I mean, she literally had me for 4 hours. The rest of the packing and unpacking she did while I worked. So, but it was like, okay, well, now I'm taking care of the family, I'm taking care of the kid, and now we have 2 kids, taking care of them. Like, we have got to make profit now. And so a great way to do that is don't spend 20% of your sales on Google Ads.
Yes.
Take an hour, get up early, drive to some KBA meeting and talk to people.
Yes.
And so that's how I've done a lot of it. Right now, 65% of my business is either referral or repeat business, which means that at that point, I'm not paying anything but whatever the lunch cost to acquire these clients.
Yeah.
And, it's easy to say when you're an HVAC company and you're closing 20 to 30 deals a month. But for us, we have to do 120 jobs per month just to maintain.
Right.
So that's a lot of new client acquisition. So,
yes.
I'm doing it. I've got a couple others of my team members that are also involved in networking, which you probably met some of them at Governor's too.
I did.
And so that's a huge part of our strategy. And it's been great. The biggest job we ever had, we landed from a KBA referral. So literally that referral cost me a couple of lunches and that's it. And we ended up doing a job that was over 20 grand off of it.
Wow. I mean, that's a lesson that I'd love for our viewers to really embrace, because what Taylor said, and I had a digital business before I had a stroke, so I understand Google AdWords, Facebook ads, and I understand it's very expensive.
Yeah, it's not cheap.
And you're bringing in cold traffic, which means they don't know Taylor. They have no idea. So the first question out of a digital ads buyer or prospect is, how much? Now, when you got that lead that produced $20,000, I guarantee you the first question wasn't how much. They said, Joe recommended I call you. So if a referral calls you, the first question is not how much, is if you believe in the person that has referred you, you're just wanting to know if that job can happen, because if it doesn't, that guy, that girl, or whoever referred you, then it's on them. So your reputation's on the line when you get a referral. So you don't have to ask the question of how much. Take us out. I'm really curious about your background. So you mentioned that you worked at a church. You are probably one of the more personable guests I've had in a long time. So Did growing up in the church develop that skill, or what? How did you do it? Was it your mom and dad?
Yeah, I mean, so both of my parents are total extroverts. They're both people.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got a lot of that from my dad, because my dad is very outgoing, especially when it comes to business. But I mean, so is my mom. And so it's been something that's a little bit natural. Funny enough, though, I mean, there's definitely a lot of nurture to it, because all of my siblings to some degree are very similar. But even I've got a sister who's 18 years old, and, half the 18-year-olds, they can't talk to you unless they're like this with their phone in their face.
Totally.
And Sarah is not like that. Sarah's very personable and easy to talk with anybody. She can sit there and chat with anybody. So yeah, I mean, I think a huge part of it is the family, but then, yeah, I mean, church and just having to figure out, where I fit in. You don't figure that out through a phone. You figure that out by talking to people.
Now, I don't know the answer to this, but as I'm listening to you, I know a person named Mark Chastain.
Yeah, that's my dad.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, okay, that's funny. I didn't know.
That is crazy. Yeah, I know Mark.
Unless he's the dermatologist. There's
also a dermatologist
in Georgia.
This is Mark, the consultant, the financial guy. Dad. Yes. And your mom is
Karen Chastain.
Yes.
Yep. And then I have a stepmom, Julie Chastain.
Julie, yes. Okay.
She does health and life insurance.
Yes, I know Julie.
Her office is in Rednour.
Okay. Yeah. Holy mackerel. That's crazy.
That's funny.
That you are Mark Chastain's son?
Yep.
That doesn't surprise me, because Mark's now I knew Mark, a little bit of his background through a friend of mine, and met with him one time way back about 8 years ago, because we were trying to do some consulting, and he was coming in for the financial part of it, because he knew that business so well. Yep. Now I know Mark's never had a W-2. That's great. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I mean, he generates one for himself out of his company, but I don't know that.
Yeah. No, I mean, I know what you're saying.
You know what I mean?
He looks in the mirror each morning, and it's up to me.
Yep.
It's not like I got a paycheck no matter what. I can take off, play golf. I have to produce. And I think what you said, which is so good, every day you got to make money. Mm-hmm. And if you know that you have to make money, I cringe when I hear people say, well, we're in the startup stage. We don't expect to make money till year 2. Oh, man.
Seems like a hard life to me.
That's kind of a mindset that they bought into that is not correct.
No.
You knew that you had to make it happen. So every dollar you spend, you need a return on it. Mm-hmm. And so you can't throw an unbelievable amount of Google ad dollars just to generate leads, because leads don't mean that much if it costs you more to generate the lead than you made off of it.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Well, especially in a low average ticket business, which we're a low average ticket.
Right.
We compared to our industry, we have a high average ticket, but our average ticket is still sub $500.
Right.
And so if I go spend $45, $55, $65 a lead, there's no meat on that bone, especially if that lead's a single item pickup or something like that. Mm-hmm. There's no meat on that bone. And so, you got to be smart about it. And the thing I see a lot with people doing startups and are in that mindset of, we'll make money later. Well, you only get good at the things that you practice.
Yes.
And that includes making money.
Right.
So even if that means I'm going to go bust my butt and I'll do $500 on the day and I'm going to make $50, well, for up and away now, that's a stinker of a day, but at least we were profitable.
Okay.
Right.
Man, I tell you what, this is another, like, how you peel back an onion, and if you get down to it, and sometimes that onion is rotten. And sometimes when you peel an onion, it just keeps getting better and better. And that's with you. I mean, do you have influence over with your dad?
Yeah. I mean, he and I, what's funny is it's really only in the last 6 to 8 months, he's gotten more involved in like conversations more frequently than I'd say like monthly or more. Mm-hmm. Before that, it was like we would talk business in a detailed way every 3-4 months. Mm-hmm. But now he's starting getting involved more because the business is getting more cumbersome. And I've got a bookkeeper now who needs direction. And I don't speak accountant. That's just not my world. Right. So my dad will help give him the direction, and my dad will help with me with creating dashboards that I can track stuff. Mm-hmm. And then he helps me with big financial decisions. Like we had an engine blow up last week. Okay, well, now we got to do the math, right? Is it worth it to put a new engine in, or do we just say forget it and buy a new truck? Mm-hmm. Okay, he helped me out with that one because that's a hard one for me to just call from the hip.
Right.
And so that's really helpful to have him in my back pocket on those.
Wow, this is really good. So tell our viewers too. I like that, in 2020 when you're starting to build a team, what was that like? Because it's anything we do for the first time, we are always as bad as we'll ever be until we get better. So what lesson did you learn, like for a business owner out there that's growing and looking to go from solo entrepreneur to building a team? What could you help them with?
Yeah, you got to have thick skin. Because
Yeah.
I'm a people person. I love everybody to kumbaya together, and that's all fine and dandy. But, like my first full-time hire was my best friend. After a year, he wanted to go do something else. He's allowed to go do something else, right? I got all my feelings hurt about it because, oh man, we were going to build this thing together. Well, he needed a job, and then he needed a better job.
Mm-hmm.
It's my fault that I didn't provide him the better job, or he just wants something different, and who cares, right? Developing that tough skin, though, is important. Being willing and able to go through the process with lots of people, because your first one is not going to be your best one. And then also, do not dilly-dally when it's time to pull the ripcord, meaning hire slow, fire fast. I had a guy on my team for a long time that was the hard part for me was he was twice my age, and he had an attitude issue and an authority issue. And so we just did not see eye to eye. And he was a good guy. He was a great employee, and the clients loved him. He and I just could never get on the same page. And it took me way too long. But eventually the conversation was, I need a right-hand man I can trust, and we can be like this, synced up. I said, you've been trying, I've been trying, and we've got nothing but conflict. So we can't work together, and I can't go anywhere. So you got to go. If I would have made that call 4 months sooner, my team would have been better off. Not because of anything super awful about this guy personally. Yeah. We just needed to reduce the tension and get the gears, back lubricated, moving quickly again. And then since that happened, the business has been fine. Yeah. The business has been great. And it's funny, come to find out, behind my back, he was telling everybody, oh, this business would fall apart without me. And from the time he left last summer to the end of the year, we did as much sales in those 6 months as we did the whole previous year while he was on the team. So I was like, no, I said, it's the team that has to function. It's not just me, and it's not just you. It's all of us, or else we're not getting anywhere.
That lesson, hire slow, fire fast, is such a good one. And you hear it, but you don't see it applied like you have seen it applied in your business. Yeah. And I think that
it hurts.
Yes, absolutely.
You don't want to fire somebody.
No.
I don't want to do that.
They can go on and be somebody somewhere, and hopefully they learn a lesson. You don't undercut the person that owns the company. Yeah. You're a team, you build them up. But sometimes that age difference, they get whatever it is. I don't know what the name of it is. But I will tell our viewers that are you're getting a lot of lessons today. Taylor booked next week, and I had somebody move the calendar for this morning, and I knew I was going to the KBA wake up. And I don't know what time it was, about 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. I said, do you want to come on this morning at 9? So I had forgotten about the email. So I go check it. He had checked it. Yes. So be decisive and get up early, because early bird does get the worm, I think. So we got to wind down, because I know you got an appointment. You told me ahead of time, look, I can do it, but I got to be here at this time. So I want to thank you. Tell our viewers how they can get a hold of you.
So the easiest way is upandawayjunk.com. Everything's spelled out. I didn't realize that that's a pretty long URL, but hey, this is where we're at now. Upandawayjunk.com is a great way to do it. Obviously, you can call our office, 470. Nope, that's not the right number, 404-909-4183. That's always the fastest way to schedule. And then if you want to talk to me personally, it's Taylor at upandawayjunk.com. Shoot me an email. Love to talk. I always love talking business, helping solve problems. And of course, I'm always down to talk trash.
Well, I tell you what, I would love to have you back, because there was so much packed in this 20 minutes. I can't even begin to unpack it right now. But tell our viewers, as you close, what would you want the one thing for them to take home from this podcast today?
Man, good question. I would say that especially thinking back about the issue with the team dynamic, is if you can lead with thick skin and lead with humility, the team dynamic is going to be just fine, right? As long as you're willing to say the truth as soon as you've made a decision in your mind, go ahead and act on it, but be humble and be be willing to work as a team. Otherwise, it gets you way farther. A great example is my personal truck is one of our work trucks. So the truck that comes home with me every day is the same trucks we work with, in the field. And my guys like that because they know if something goes wrong, if their truck blows up, they can just call me and they're immediately going to have a new rig, or I'll immediately be there with extra equipment to help out. They know any of the dirtiest, worst, nastiest thing that we can get. I'm always the first one to volunteer of like, I'll get the shovel, like, let's get after it. Which is good. It really helps us have a healthy team, especially in a business where it can be very unpleasant. I mean,
Sure.
We've shoveled adult diapers, it's just part of it. But being able to say, okay, no, nobody is above doing what we do here. Nobody's off the truck. I say that all the time. Nobody's off the truck. Everybody is on the truck at some point. Saturday, my office manager is going to be doing an eviction with us because we need help. And just keeping that humility and then making quick decisions. Once you've decided, quit farting around.
Wow, this is good. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you,
Taylor, for being on here, and talk to your dad, because I'd love to have him on, because it's just knowing your numbers are so important, and being that he's really does shines in that area. Maybe you can twist his arm a little bit.
All right, I'll see what I can do.
Okay. Thank you so much, Taylor. Bye.